Hi, my name's Fiddian Warman. My background's a visual artist, and I've gradually got more and more into technology. I now have a company called Soda, and we specialise in the creative application of technology for art and learning. Soda's work ranges from robotic, mechatronic, physical installations for museums and galleries through to a lot of purely online stuff. Online, we're best known for Soda Play, which we won a BAFTA for, and it's basically an online construction kit. So you draw dots and lines, which then animate according to principles of physics, and you can create these moving creatures, which are quite anthropomorphic, and people really get quite attached to and share them with other people online. The really interesting thing about Soda Play and Soda Constructor models is that people, even though the models are so simple, it's their movement, which is very anthropomorphic. It's based on Hooke's law. It's based on real physics of springiness, and people identify with that. And even in little black and white dots and lines in their movement, people really feel that they move like real creatures. There's something in the movement which is implicit. It animates them in a way that they can get real attachment to them. My background is fine art, sculpture, and my sculptures were beginning to get more electronic, so I was doing stuff with hundreds of LEDs or with motors in a very kind of Heath Robinson, quite crude way. And I was getting, I'm kind of geek through and through, I guess, and was getting more and more interested in technology, but feeling increasingly frustrated about not being able to control technology in a fundamental way. So I went and did an MA in digital art so I could learn some programming and more about electronics and microcontrollers so that I could control my art in a more dynamic, interactive way. I've always been very passionate about robots, about making robots. There's something incredibly exciting about making things which have a life of their own, giving life to a physical entity. Programming in itself is exciting, making things which then move under their own steam on screen. But when that comes into the physical domain, it's even to me, it's even more exciting. Just getting a microcontroller to control motors, to control movement, in response to something you're doing, to me, is a real buzz. My robotics projects have ranged from my first one, my MA, was robotic bulldozers that moved around a patch of soil, communicated by an infrared link with some software on a computer, which enabled people to draw images on a computer screen, which the robots would then in a very crude way trace out on the patch of soil. I then created a robotic piece called Corrupted Nature, which was two robots performing a Marquis de Sade piece. And the one robot was a priest robot that gave last rites to a dying man lying in bed. And it was about robots playing out these very, very human issues. And they have an argument about the nature of free will, of our passions, of what makes us human. And so it was a play with robots performing those very human roles. My thinking about artificial intelligence is that it's such a broad domain. My personal experience of artificial intelligence has been working with people using neural networks to control robots for artworks, or working with Soda Play and genetic algorithms. In both instances, what I find really exciting about artificial intelligence is when you get emergent behaviours which you could never have predicted. It wasn't something designed in from the beginning. This behaviour emerged. There are many areas of artificial intelligence which range from expert systems, which to me are the most dry and uninteresting, and at one extreme, expert systems are not much more than a kind of fault-finding chart, like you might use to diagnose the run-through problems with your car, which you can get a programmer robot to do. At the other end, using things like neural networks, which are self-learning systems, and you don't even know how a neural network has learned what it's learned, or it's kind of a black box, really. You set up this software, it learns stuff, and then things come out of it. I think it's crucially important that the systems, the tools the modes of learning that we give young people enable open, creative exploration, so they can have happy accidents, that things can emerge. Soda Constructor in itself was kind of a happy accident. So does then R&D director Ed Burton created Soda Play as a way of teaching himself Java, and it then became a massive hit on the web. And Soda Constructor in itself has then spawned creations which are way beyond what we thought the tool could be used for. With Soda Play, with Soda Constructor, we find people online making and sharing things like motors or flying devices or making marble runs, doing all these things we never designed the system to do. It's emergent activity that has come out of giving people open-ended creative tools that enables all these happy accidents. My most recent robot project is called Neurotic, and I loved punk music as a kid and shamefully still do. And I originally was very interested in biology, and I actually started a biology degree before going to art school, and so still very interested in psychology, neurology, and that's informed a lot of my work. With Neurotic, I've made 3 life-size pogoing robots which sit within an audience at a punk gig. The robots are controlled by a neural network, and the neural network has been played the punk music that I loved as a kid. So in a way it's taken on my musical taste, it's taken on the love of punk that I had as a kid. And then I've now formed a punk band to perform to the robots and the audience at the gig. If my punk band sounds punk enough, then the robots will bounce up and down and pogo vigorously. If not, they just sit there kind of disgruntled. I think it's a really fascinating time for robotics, for artificial intelligence, for how technology is influencing our lives. For many years I've worked with user interfaces primarily on 2-dimensional screens. Now our user interface experience is going to become more and more with 3-dimensional objects which exist in the physical domain, and that's 2 dimensions is challenging enough, 3 dimensions is very, very complex. If I was starting out today, I would go online, I would try tools like the fantastic Arduino open source microcontroller project. For a very small amount of money you can buy these microcontrollers online. There's a huge amount of support out there, a huge amount of resources where you can just get motors and lights and make yourself something really, really simple. There's hundreds, thousands of people out there who want to support you, to help you with those projects. You can do it yourself. You can do very, very powerful things, stuff that was only dreamed about in research laboratories 10, 15 years ago, and now in the hands of everybody, and you can just get out and do it. If someone wants to play with proper coding, I'd very much recommend processing. If you just Google processing, it's a great environment where you can do really quite sophisticated coding, particularly for making nice visual stuff. And it's very, very accessible, and there's lots of people out there to help you. There's lots of tutorials, there's lots of forums, there's a lot of support, and you can do great stuff really quite easily using processing. I get frustrated today when I see the kind of materials that young people are getting to learn, particularly about technology within schools, and they tend to be given Microsoft Office or really quite closed, pedagogically narrow domains of activity. And I think there's so much that can be done with open, creative learning systems that is so much more engaging for young people. It marries so much more with the traditional way of learning through play, through exploration, through just love of the topic, love of experimentation, of getting things wrong, of doing it again. It's the way the great discoveries have been made through history. As I got more into technology, I had to know how everything ticked. So I learned about programming, I learned about electronics, I learned about microcontrollers. I believe as an artist you need to be relevant, you need to address the issues which are affecting the world as it stands today. Digital technology is changing the world more than anything else. I think that's pretty pretty obvious. So it makes sense to me as an artist to employ digital technologies as a reflection on the way that those changes are going about in our world.